Welcome to another episode of AtilaTV. Our guest for today is the amazing, phenomenal, what'd you say?
You don't have to say amazing, phenomenal.
Okay, welcome.
I feel so awkward.
Welcome. Welcome to another episode of AtilaTV. Our guest for today is the amazing, phenomenal, fantastic Pei Li. Pei, thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
So Pei is the founder of Code Mode, a software development company. And before that, he was the founder of Beatcamp, a music marketplace for beats. And before that, he was one of the first software engineering interns at WealthSimple. And before that, he's a dropout from U of T Engineering Science. Anyway, Pei, thank you for joining us. So the question I always like to start off with is, Pei at 16. What were you like at 16 years old?
I think I was a bit of a delinquent. I skipped a lot of class, liked to cause trouble, didn't really like to do homework, but I think a lot of these things are pretty true of most teenagers. I didn't really think much about what I wanted to do with my life. I wasn't success driven like I am now. And yeah, like the things I did then, I didn't really think about the consequences of it later. But I think the part of that is just growing up, and that kind of helped me become who I am today.
It's interesting because you said that you were a bit of a delinquent, yet you were able to get into the U of T Engineering Science program, one of the most competitive engineering programs in Canada. How were you able to do that?
So for engineering, the courses that you really need to be good at were mostly math and science courses, and those were subjects like I kind of had a natural, affinity for. And that's also why I was interested in engineering in the first place. But there were other courses that I needed that I'm not good at, like say English. And for those, I had to spend a lot more time to try to make up for what I lacked.
And then so then when it's now time grade 11, grade 12, you're looking at U of T Engineering. What are the programs you're looking at? What are the schools that you're looking at?
So I applied to, I think, 3 programs. One was nano engineering at Waterloo. That was my top choice. I also applied to mechanical engineering at U of T and engineering science. Engineering science was one of the last programs I applied to because I'm not sure why. I did a lot of software in high school, but for some reason I wanted to do something different. I think I wanted to do like what at the time I considered to be like real engineering.
Yeah, I've heard that before.
Yeah.
And then so I think you mentioned that you got into nano engineering at Waterloo, or no?
Waterloo, yeah, I did.
And then why did you pick U of T over Waterloo?
It was a petty reason really. It was because like most of my really smart and like really hardworking friends were all hyping it up. They all applied to it, and they were all like talking about it every day, saying like, oh, like I'm still waiting for an acceptance. Like I really wish I'm gonna get in. And then it was kind of a bit of a FOMO. I'm like, what do these people know that I don't? Because obviously I didn't do my research. So, and like, I asked my teachers about it, and they all said it was a great program. And like the lazy kid I was, I just didn't bother go on Google for like 5 minutes to verify it myself. So I applied for it, and when I got the acceptance, I was kind of like, okay, I guess I'm going. Yeah.
That's crazy. Okay, so then you get into your first one. So you mentioned earlier on that U of T Engineering Science, the first 2 years is general. So how were the first 2 years of U of T Engineering for you? I know I heard a lot that like it's a really rigorous program, a lot of work, all that kind of stuff. How did you find it?
I think the first year was actually okay. Like, I think first year is kind of like the normalizer for students because people go into that program from all different kinds of high school, right? And everybody who got in have like 90s from high school. But the thing is, different schools had different standards for tests. There were at different levels of competition. So in the first year, like half the kids like dropped out or switched out.
Like actually half, or you're exaggerating a bit?
Like actually half. I think the actual stats is like in the first 2 years, like 50% or 49%, something like that, switch out to a different program.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's really high. We started with I think almost 400 people, and by the time I finished second year, it was like less than 200.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's crazy. And then so I forgot this, and you reminded me about this. You worked at IBM, then you worked at Shopify. How did those 2 opportunities come about?
So IBM was like a bit of a fluke. I applied after first year and like miraculously got an interview, which I completely bombed, by the way. Like I was given like a relatively simple question about some optimization problem applied to real life, and after interview, like I knew I failed because like I didn't get anywhere close to like a good answer. But then I spent the rest of the afternoon kind of researching it, and I wrote like a 3 to 4 page like analysis on it, and I sent it to the manager who interviewed me. And I think that's what kind of changed his mind about me, because he was like, well, obviously this kid's willing to put in the time to solve problems, and like he's just interested in them, I guess. So that's how I got my first co-op.
Awesome. And then Shopify. Tell us how that Shopify stuff came about.
Shopify was like also a bit of a fluke. After second year, I wanted to take some time and do some industry work because I didn't want to do another year of school just yet. So I got back to IBM and I got like a 16-month offer from them, and I accepted it. But I had a roommate that like he kind of brought up the idea that I could split the 16 months into 4 co-ops instead. And Shopify was like a growing company that had some like interesting perks and like amazing team. So I figured, why not? I'll just apply. I actually didn't know what I was going to do if I got it, because I already accepted an offer. But after a couple rounds of interviews, I did get the offer. So I decided to. I called up my manager from IBM and said, hey, like I don't really want to do 16 months anymore. Can you make it into 4? And he was okay with that because, like in his words, he said like if I really didn't want to do the job, there's no point in forcing me because I would just end up doing like a shitty job. So I did 4 months at IBM, and then I did 4 months Shopify, which I renewed for another 4 months after.
It's pretty interesting because I feel like you went from IBM, which is like one of the biggest companies in the world, I think it's safe to say, to Shopify, which is like, it's a fairly big number at the time, it's a bit more of a startup. So how do you compare like working at a big company like IBM to working at a smaller startup like Shopify?
It was like night and day. Like I think Shopify was what kind of brought me into the startup world. Before that, I had no idea like it was even possible to have a culture that Shopify had. People just seemed like they were very open to talking to me and helping me, mentoring me. People were a lot more self-driven. I kind of got in and I was like, how is it that you have all these rooms where people can just chill on the couch and still get stuff done? That was like absurd to me. And then there was like the free lunches, like a lot of snacks, a lot of like sport perks, and a bunch of all this stuff that I was like, are these people actually living life like this? That's amazing.
Yeah.
So I kind of fell in love with the startup culture after that.
That's amazing. Okay, so then you finish your internship at Shopify, you head back to school, and at this point you picked software, based on your industry experience, right? Or want to explain why did you pick software? I think it's kind of obvious, but just...
I think at that point it was like, school got me like some, I guess, practical experience with the other fields of engineering. Like I did labs for like mechanical engineering, for like just raw physics, for biology, chemistry, and it was always just a pain in the ass. I didn't enjoy it.
Yeah.
Like my favorite parts were like when I could just sit in front of a computer and code. So I figured like why like it's time to stop the FOMO. Like I don't think there's much else out there that like I would enjoy as much as software. So I just stuck with it.
It's amazing. Okay, so then now tell us, how did the WealthSimple opportunity come out?
WealthSimple is like also a fluke. Like I feel like this is a recurring theme in my life where like I guess I'm just lucky. I got lucky and things just pop in front of me. So during third year, I was very cocky, right? I was like, I got all these like internships under my belt.
Yeah.
There's like I'm a great software engineer, and there is no reason why like any company should not want me.
Okay.
So I applied to 4 or 5 co-ops that summer. Applied to like Microsoft, Google, Facebook, Yelp, and I think another one. And I was just waiting. Like I figured like at least one of these people want me, or probably 2 or 3, and I'll just choose one of them, right? In the end, I got rejected by all of them.
Mm-hmm.
Probably because I was so cocky. And on the day I got my last rejection, I kind of like woke up, saw the email, and I realized like it's like late February. Like I need to find a job in Toronto ASAP, or I'm going to be unemployed. So that same morning, I scrolled through a list of like Toronto startups, and when I came across WealthSimple's page, like I haven't made any applications at this point, but I was always interested in finance, and WealthSimple was looking for a Rails engineer, and so I had that background, but didn't have any co-op offerings. So I reached out to their director of engineering at the time, Carney, and I kind of told them like, hey, like I have some Rails experience from my past co-ops, and I'm very interested in finance, and I have like some side projects related to finance. Like, are you guys willing to make an exception and like open up a co-op position, right? So that was on a Monday, and Carney got back to me the same day, and on Tuesday I did a coding challenge for them. On Wednesday I did their interview, and on Thursday I got the offer, which I immediately accepted.
Wow.
It was kind of just like the stars aligned because, you know, like it's not like I was settling. It's the company was very interesting to me, and it's very much suited me. But it was actually later on after I arrived at the company and worked for a few weeks that I realized like this company is like amazing.
That's pretty cool. And then so you're working there for 4 months, and at the end of the 4 months, it's time to go back to school. But what did you end up doing instead?
So I dropped out of U of T to work there full time, but that decision happened way earlier. It happened after 2 weeks at WealthSimple. By the end of the 2 weeks, like the engineer that was mentoring me, Mark, he was very helpful, and he taught me so much. Just within those 10 working days, I realized that I could learn so much more here than I could at school. This company is like for sure about to take off. Like everyone here is so talented. Like there is not a single lazy person or uninteresting person. Right? Not only are these like engineers very capable, but they also have very interesting personal lives. They're like they're not code monkeys. So I kind of went to Carney and said, hey, like, would you be interested in like giving me a full-time offer, and then I would just not go back to school. And yeah, he was very open to that. It wasn't like I was pressured or anything. Like some startups pressure you to drop out of school to keep working for them. But this is very much like I wanted to do it.
And did he try to persuade you the other way, like, you know, take your time, graduate, finish your degree, then come back?
No, and I think if he did, I would have pushed back.
Yeah, I see what you mean. So then now you're working at WealthSimple, and then so, is this before, like, while you were at WealthSimple, you were working on Beatcamp on the side?
Yeah, that's what happened.
Okay, so why don't you tell us, like, so for more context, Beatcamp is so first of all, why don't you tell us what Beatcamp is, and how, like, the idea of Beatcamp, and how do you start the company?
Yeah, so with Beatcamp, my colleague at WealthSimple, Ayush, he approached me while I was at work, and kind of at first kind of like offered, like he pitched this idea and said, hey, like looking for an engineer I can pay some money to build this for me, and I was already about to work at WealthSimple full time. I was working there full time, so the way I saw it was like I don't need an extra couple $1,000s, right? And the little bit of time I have left after work, I want to work on something that could have like a very large upside. So that's why I took the project. I started working with them to build this music marketplace where producers can license their instrumentals to rappers, and then rappers will then take that instrumental, rap on top of it, and then sell the finished song.
Interesting. And then so you're working at WealthSimple, and then like evenings and weekends you're working on Beatcamp, and then September comes around, you're working at WealthSimple full time, and you're still working on Beatcamp. And I think that's around the point you decided to just stop working at WealthSimple. You got a bit of funding, and started working on Beatcamp full time.
It was much later than that actually. Okay. So I was working on Beatcamp part time for like well over a year. So in 2016 I joined WealthSimple, and it was late 2017 that we got funding, and even after we got the funding, we kind of like just kept the money in the bank. We weren't sure what to spend it on, and we kept working at part time. It wasn't until early 2018 that we realized that like we're just working too slowly, right? Like the marginal number of hours I put in every week was not enough to get the platform like even finished. So you know, we both talked to our mentors, and we kind of saw that not only were we never going to finish this platform if we didn't do it full time, we also weren't going to get any more funding, because who would invest in a company where like the co-founders didn't even believe in themselves?
Really? You guys didn't believe in yourselves?
I mean, it's not whether or not we believe in ourselves, like in that sense. It's like, if you're not willing to quit your job over it, then like you can say you believe in yourselves, but do you really?
That's a good point. And then why weren't you ready to get this company wasn't making any money yet?
Yeah, like it wasn't making any money, and you know, they wouldn't like. Other than my co-founder's word, I didn't really have any like validation that this idea would work. Right? I didn't understand the music industry. Like I'm not a music producer or a rapper, and it was my co-founder who held that knowledge.
And then so like, at what point in the year is this now?
At this point, it was beginning of 2018.
So early 2018, and then so like what are you thinking? Like what's your thought process at this point? Like, we're gonna try make this company profitable, or like close down the company? Where are you guys at in that conversation?
It was open-ended. Like, you know, we could see a route where the company was acquired, but we could also see a route where like it made enough money to be passive, or it could be like something that someone would invest in and we could make it into like a bigger company, right? We weren't sure, but we did notice we had 60K from OCE, and we thought, okay, like 60K, that's enough to like keep us going for at least 6 months, and we can use these 6 months to figure out what to do next. In the worst case scenario, like I'll find a full-time job, or like maybe do some traveling before doing that. But it wasn't like, it was a calculated risk.
And then so what next? What do you guys do after that at the end of the 6 months? Or
so I think, yeah, just about 6 months after that, we were in operation for a while, and we had, like, you know, we were making money as a company, but it wasn't enough to make me feel like it was justifying the amount of time I was spending on it. Like I was the only project I was working on for these months, right? And I think like at the very least, the company needs to make enough money to pay me at least as much as like a company would, and we weren't doing that. So I decided like it wasn't worth this path. Like I can kind of see where it was leading, and it wasn't where I wanted to be. So I decided to start doing that part time, and you know, I like either sold or gave away or stored most of my belongings, packed my bags, and went off to Asia.
Asia, the Asia trip.
Yeah.
So tell us more about why did you decide to go to Asia, and like what was that trip like?
So I kind of started off.
Question. Should I stop the recording, or should I just keep on recording? Should I do another recording?
No, it's fine.
Okay. Yeah. So yeah, Asia. Why did you decide to go to Asia?
I mean, one, it was cheap. It was just on my bucket list, right? You hear about all these like digital nomads who kind of like either quit their jobs or like work remote, so they can they can just travel the world and like live their life, right? So I wanted to try that while I was still young, because like at the time I didn't have assets, I didn't have responsibilities, and I had enough money saved up to like last at least 3 months, and even if I had to go a bit to debt, that's fine. Like you can always find more work. Yeah. So I was also looking to freelancing at the time. I had one contract that just started, so I figured like, yeah, no, if that kind of takes off, that's enough to keep basically enough to fund my trip. But if not, I'll just come back after 3 months.
So then you're traveling through Asia for 3 months. So where in Asia were we, and like how did you find the whole experience?
So it wasn't my first time backpacking, but it was my first trip like longer than 2 weeks. Started off in Cambodia, went to Vietnam. I got homesick, came back for a bit, and then went to Thailand. I did like a Muay Thai boot camp for a month.
Oh yeah, I saw that on your Instagram.
Yeah.
I'll link it below right here. Okay.
Yeah, it's private, so.
Oh, is it private?
Yeah, it's private. Okay. You're welcome though. Like.
It wasn't private before.
Yeah, I mean, I think my priorities kind of changed over the last year.
Okay, I'll ask you. You want to talk about that?
I mean, sure. Like, I mean, it's getting likes is like a dopamine hit, right?
Yeah.
And like, but when you think about it, like I think I realized after a while that like a lot of the people that did follow me or like I either didn't even know them or like didn't care about me. So it's like why does it matter if their feedback, like if they like my photos, right? And like, why should my happiness depend on that meaningless feedback? And I could feel my life being taken over by this obsession with like recording things and like waiting for the likes to pour in and doing things just because for the gram. So I actually deleted my Instagram for a while and started a new one. And when I started a new one, I wanted it to be something where like friends that I knew and cared about could see what I was up to, and we could talk about those experiences.
That's pretty interesting.
Yeah.
So should I link it below or no?
Sure, do it.
Whatever link it, request, you can decide whether or not to accept. So then at that point, so you're there for 3 months, you come homesick, you come back, you go back again. And then, so like, is this around when Code Mode decided to get started, or?
So around this time, I shut down Beatcamp because I had a falling out with my co-founder. And I won't go into that because it was very serious, very intense, and I don't want what happened to ruin any opportunities for my past co-founders. But we ended up shutting down the platform, and at this time I was working that freelance contract, but also looking at new leads, and I found that there was enough work to keep me busy full time while paying me more than a full-time job would, and it kind of clicked for me that this is a domain that I can do the technical work, so I'm very familiar with. So why don't I turn this into a company? So while I was homesick, I came back for 2 weeks. I used those 2 weeks to kind of talk to an accountant, talk to a lawyer, get a corporation set up, and just set the foundation for the company.
Wow.
And then when I flew back, that's kind of when Code Mode started, right? I started funneling all my leads to Code Mode. I moved my existing contract to Code Mode, and started working on the things I would need to do a formal launch, like logos, websites, contracts, and such.
Very interesting. Okay, so then you started Code Mode, and I think that's kind of where you're at right now.
Yeah, so I came back. I came back to Canada around the end of January. I started going to networking events. Started catching up with friends a lot, and just building a more solid client base.
That's pretty dope, pretty dope. So now I have a couple of questions on things you mentioned going forward. So I guess the first question I have is, let's go back to the U of T engineering dropout thing, right?
Okay.
So I know you mentioned before that you grew up with a single mother. So and she's an immigrant too, right? Asian parents, immigrant parents. We all know how they can be. What was it like when you told her of your decision, and how did she take that?
I don't remember the exact reaction, but she definitely was not happy.
Yeah.
It was I kind of mildly lied about it. I was I'm just taking some time off to make some more money, because I can't afford school right now. Which it wasn't really lie. It was true. I didn't have a lot of money, and I didn't want to go into debt to pay for school. So I was give me a year or two, I'll go back. She's like, okay, fine. And she didn't have a lot of money either, so it's not like she could just pay for everything. So I dropped out, and the next year she's like, oh yeah, you're going back to school now? I'm like, no. And then the year after, go back to school yet? No. Even now, she's like, you going back to school yet? I'm
she still thinks you're going to go back to school?
She still asks me about it, but I think more and more I can hear in her voice that she asked because she's my mother.
Yeah.
She I think deep down, she knows I'm not going back to school.
Yeah. But did you guys ever have an actual conversation Mom, I'm making money off of this thing, I'm probably never going to go back. Have you ever had that conversation?
Yeah, yesterday. Yeah, so I was like, hey, look, this is how much school costs, and this is how much time it's going to take, and this is what my company currently pulls in in revenue right now. Does it make sense for me to go back to school?
Yeah.
Look at these numbers, right? It's if I go back to school, I have to drop this momentum that I have built up.
Cost, yeah.
Exactly, it's a huge cost, and I told her if it ever does make sense in this model that I just kind of explained, then I will. But if it doesn't, then you're not doing me any favors by pressuring me to go back to school, right? If anything, it's going to make me less successful and happy as a person, and that's not something I I know that's not something you would want for me.
Interesting. What was her response?
She like seemed pretty okay with it,
Yeah.
but I feel like every month like this kind of resets and then we have to have that conversation again.
That's pretty funny, man. And then another point another point you made in passing was you were talking about how when you and Aish were having a conversation, you were talking to some mentors. So how did you find these mentors? Like, what was the importance of having a mentor when you're starting a company?
It's very important, honestly. Like, especially when I first started, when I first like quit my job at WealthSimple, I had no idea what I was doing, and it was my mentors who kind of like gave me like a framework to think about evaluating risk, right? Mm-hmm. Like he told me like, hey, look, like if you quit your job now, you can always find another job or even go back. Mm-hmm. Like, you know, you're a decent engineer, like there's no hard feelings, you're not burning any bridges. So the worst case scenario, in a year, you'll be exactly where you are now, maybe more. In the best case scenario, like you'll be able, this company could succeed and you could like potentially sell it or it could like change your life. So it's a very one-sided opportunity. Like there's not much risk to it, and things like this that like it's hard to gain this knowledge yourself. Mm-hmm. And also with things like raising money, right? Like my thoughts on it years ago were like, yeah, like you just like ask for money and they'll give you money and then you like grow the company, right? Yeah. Ooh. But he kind of taught me that like, people invest in you because they think they're gonna make money off of you. And if you can't think of a way to turn their money into a lot more money in a very like believable and like well thought out way, like there can't be any like hand wavy magic going on. So things like that.
Mm-hmm. It's very interesting. And like I know Beatcamp was like, personally for me, I actually found the idea of Beatcamp really cool. Mm-hmm. And I know you guys had your differences. We're not going to go into it, but I think you make it very interesting. I think you have a lot of insight on this topic, whereby business person has an idea, and then and then says, "Look, I have an idea, but I need someone to help me build it out." Mm-hmm. Do you have any advice for people watching this right now? Like, if you want to start a company and you're the business person or the technical person, mm-hmm. thoughts around like how do you find a good co-partner and make sure things work out well?
Yeah, hire code mode. Kidding.
Don't worry, I'll link you guys below.
So I would say like, if you have an idea, especially if it's a technical idea, like don't get like too wrapped up in like the adrenaline of building an actual product just yet. Like when you first start, you really just want to validate that this problem that you're trying to solve with technology actually exists and exists on the scale that where like technology will actually help, right? Like a lot of startup ideas, like product ideas, the problem that they're solving can be solved without a product. It could be like a person doing that job, right? I'm trying to think of a good example. Like if you're trying to connect like two groups of people, mm-hmm. Say the issue is like construction, and construction workers need like materials in the middle of the day that they ran out of. And there's like suppliers, right? You can do that job literally just through text. Like you don't need an app to do that. An app is great, but you could also make it so that like, hey, look, if you need anything to do today, text me, I'll get it to you in an hour, done, mm-hmm. right? And then if you run a business like that, not only do you not have to like pay for a product, you don't have to maintain a product, you don't have to pay an engineer or find a co-founder. Like you keep all the equity, and it's like mm-hmm. Now you validate that this is an actual problem that construction workers have. Mm-hmm. And once you get to the point where like, okay, well, I'm working with like 20 companies, I literally cannot text fast enough. Mm-hmm. Then that's when you think like, okay, now I need a product. Mm-hmm. And now it's a lot easier to find a co-founder who's mm-hmm. like, wait, you're making how much money now? Yeah. Okay, I'm in.
Yeah. How about on the topic of like founder disputes? Again, we don't have to go into anything you don't want to go into, mm-hmm. but the topic like founder disputes, right? Like what are some things in hindsight now, or like not even like in your situation, just like in general situations, right? Mm-hmm. Like if someone's going to go into business with their friend or someone they don't even know that well, mm-hmm. what are some things they can start doing like at the beginning of the relationship mm-hmm. to make sure that things like will end on a good note or like continue on a good note as well?
Yeah, so it's like, I think it's very much like a relationship, right? Like you start out, you need to talk about the ugly things. Like, yeah, like at the beginning, you trust this person. You can't even think of a way that like things can turn sour. But you need to like have some contingencies written down, right? Like, okay, what happens when we actually go into a dispute? Like, how do we resolve that dispute? And So the arrangement I had with a co-founder was like 50-50. We're both directors, and if we had a dispute, find an arbitrator. Terrible idea. Like, when you're ever going to actually pay an arbitrator a couple $1,000s to like solve like a possibly petty dispute, right? So you can trust that person, but at the end of the day, there needs to be a quick and efficient way for decisions to be made. And personally, I think 50-50 is just a terrible idea. Like, especially if you have an idea, like you're a business person, if you go down the route of kind of trying to build out yourself and validating the problem first, by the time you pull in a co-founder, like, there's no reason to give them 50%. You could give them like 20%, and that'll be totally fair, right? And also puts you in a position where, like, when hard decisions need to be made, you have like the executive power to make a decision. And while you don't want to, play that executive card like on a daily basis or even weekly basis, it's just a contingency, right? Like, you want to work well together, but if shit hits the fan, like, you need to be able to like move forward and make decisions quickly.
Interesting. Okay, so then I wanted to go to okay, so code mode. So yeah, so the thing I found really cool about you, and I remember following some of your adventures on like social media, was when you were backpacking through Asia. Mm-hmm. So I know a lot of people have on their bucket list, especially people like our age, millennials. They want to travel the world, backpack through Asia, backpack through Europe. Mm-hmm. Sort of, how did the idea come into your mind? I don't know if I already asked you this, but how did the idea come into your mind? Okay, I want to backpack through Asia for like 3 months. Mm-hmm. And like for maybe like other people as well, maybe if they're, okay, actually, let's ask that question first. How did that idea come into your head? Why did you decide to backpack through Asia for 3 months?
Yeah, I think I did answer this. It was just like you hear about it a lot, like on social media and like news about digital nomads. Yeah, so that's basically why. And what's your second question?
And so my question now is like, so if someone like, because I know like right now a lot of my friends are graduating or they recently graduated. And a big thing for them is they want to do a grad trip.
Yeah.
Or they want to take a year off. Maybe like they work for 2 years, now they want to take a year off before they go to grad school.
Yeah.
Do you have any advice for people who want to like maybe backpack through like a country or like travel the world? Mm-hmm. What advice would you give them based on what your experience is?
I mean, assuming you're like about to graduate, you want to do a grad trip, like go for it. Just try to get a job lined up before you go. Space it by like a couple months, and just go. Right. Like a few months, I think is enough to get your get your ankles wet, kind of see like. What's out there in the world, kind of like discover about what you like, who you are as a person. Like, I know it kind of sounds kind of like cheesy, but especially when you're alone, somewhere very unfamiliar, you're very open to change. You become a very open-minded and insightful, like self-aware person, and you'll learn things about yourself that you didn't even know. And you do this few months, you come back, start working full time, gain some real world experience, and you can always like continue later, right? Like if you love traveling so much and you want to do it for like a year, 2 years, or even as a full time thing, you can do it later. Like when you graduate, you're what, 22, 23?
Over here.
Yeah. Oh, true. Yeah.
You're talking to that. The camera's there, but I'm over here.
Okay. 22, 23. Like it's like you have like several years to do like risky, adventurous things, and like there's no rush, right? Like as long as you keep your options open, you don't take on a mortgage when you're like 23, 24, like speculating on the housing market, then then you're free. You can pack your bags anytime you want.
You made a very interesting point. You talked, and actually, I think I noticed this as well too. You mentioned the point of how you develop a lot of self-awareness, and you learn a lot about yourself when you travel. How did traveling change you? What kind of things did you learn about yourself?
I think one of the first things I learned is that like I value friendship a lot. Like I tend to be a lonely person. And it's actually this video, I saw this recently on YouTube. Just search up loneliness by this animator. They're very insightful. But basically it kind of goes over like most people do feel lonely at some point. But they feel lonely for different reasons, and it's also like kind of like a self-fulfilling prophecy in a sense, where like you're lonely and then you decide like to not reach out to friends because like you don't want to feel rejected for whatever reason, and then that makes you more lonely. So I think like especially in this day and age where like social media has kind of taken over our lives, it's a very common thing. So that is something I learned before, but also solidified during this trip. But the more important thing for me was like I learned what makes me feel lonely and what made me feel like loved by friends, right? So it's like it kind of made me aware of what actually makes me happy, and it taught me how to avoid things that like weren't good for my happiness and how to pursue things that were good for my happiness.
That's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. I guess the question I'll ask now, I always like to ask the question I call the 1, the 5, and the 25.
Okay.
And I think you know this question, but basically the idea behind it is, where do you see yourself, or what would you like to be doing a year from now, 5 years from now, 25 years from now?
Okay. So yeah, I actually asked this question to someone like a couple days ago.
You stole my question. I asked you this question.
Yeah, yeah, I did. Sorry, I'll give you credit. For the 5 years, like.
So you're gonna skip 1 year?
No, I'll go back to 1 year.
Okay.
I think it's important to think of it like this.
Okay.
Yeah. So I start with the 5 year because I think 5 years is like an amount of time that's tangible, right? It's like the things you want in 5 years, you can like realistically make happen today, and you should be aware of the things you want in 5 years, like when you're in your mid-20s. So I would say 5 years, several options. Like I would be happy either doing code mode, like running it as a company of like 10, 20 people, right? And that could be like my baby. Or I could be working full-time at a company that I believe in. Like that's a different lifestyle, but also something that will make me happy. Or I could be like a digital nomad again, like traveling the world. And I think it's important to like, at least for me, to not be too set on one thing, because like there are a lot of things that can make you happy and things can go wrong, right? Like sometimes one path doesn't work out, not because you're incapable, but because like the luck just wasn't there, right? So with that in mind, I think what I want in 1 year, where I see myself 1 year, is trying to take code mode and growing it. Because depending on whether or not I'm able to do that for like a lot of factors, a lot of luck involved. If it works out, and then for the next 4 years after that, I could continue down that 5-year path where code mode grows. If it doesn't work out, then I have the other 2 options open, right? It's like, hey, I got a lot of experience now, like I could work at a company full-time, or I could start something else, or I can prepare to pack my bags in a couple of years. And 25 years, I have no idea, and like I don't even want to think about it because chances are it's going to change. So, yeah.
Okay. And then third last question, the question I always like to ask people is, and I got this question from Gary Vaynerchuk YouTube channel. It's called, what are you currently obsessed with? So this can be absolutely anything. A new Instagram channel, a new YouTube channel you discovered, a workout at the gym, a restaurant, a book, a podcast, anything. A new exercise at the gym, anything. What are you currently obsessed with?
I'm pretty obsessed with Muay Thai right now. I find that it's a very like practical way to keep healthy. I'd never really enjoyed the gym because I felt very mundane. I'm kind of just like you take an object, you put over here and you put over here again, and and you get tired from it. It's good for you, but I just didn't find it exciting. Whereas Muay Thai, I find like it's a very it's like kind of like it's like playing a sport, right? It's very technical, but at the same time, like God forbid, but if one day I'm in a situation where I need to defend myself or someone I love, I'm like able to do that. And I don't ever want to be in a situation where I felt like if I did take self-defense classes, I could have made a difference. I could have like saved this person. And yeah, so that's what I'm currently obsessed with. Like I do Muay Thai like 3-4 times a week.
And you're looking lean, man. You're looking good, bro.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, and then second last question is, so if people found any of the things you found said here interesting today, and don't you reach out to you to ask more questions, how can people find you online?
So you can find me on LinkedIn, or you could go on my site like codemode.co. Shoot a message. That's more for like professional inquiries, but you can also email me at pei@codemode.co. Whatever is easier. Like I don't think I'm too hard to find. Like not many Pei Lis out there, but I reply to everyone. So if you have a question or you want to meet up for coffee, just hit me up.
Awesome. And the final question is, do you have any? So I'm still working on how to frame this question in a more concise way. So just bear with me. And the question is sort of like, do you like advice for like a younger Pei Li, like Pei at like 18 or 19? What would you tell your younger self? Or you can take it another direction and go like, for someone watching this right now, for like anyone,
Mhm.
what advice would you give? Like a general final piece of advice.
I like the first version of the question.
Okay.
It's like advice for someone like me,
A younger
the younger
you.
version.
Yeah.
Right? Like I don't think I'm qualified to give advice for like people younger than me because people have different situations, and I think advice should be framed more as stories, and that way a person can pick out what part of the story are relevant to them, right? And it's not like I don't know better like than the people that ask me for advice. I just have more experience, and so it's important to make that distinction, I think. But for me personally, like if I were to give advice to myself from like 5-10 years ago, it would be to not be too afraid to make mistakes. I think a lot of people miss opportunities, especially myself. Like I missed a lot of opportunities because I was too afraid of what happens if I failed. Like, you know, it could be anything from like, you know, don't apply to that job because you're not going to get it.
Can you give me a specific example of like something that you're afraid to do because you're too afraid to fail?
It's probably, there are so many. Like, I think networking is a good example. Like a lot of times I wouldn't reach out to someone that I felt was successful that like I wanted advice from because I was like, why would they want to talk to me? Other examples would be like, yeah, like applications to jobs. I think when I was like younger, I would not bother applying to some jobs that I felt like were out of reach. Right? Like, oh, this is like an intermediate position at like this engineering firm. Like, I'm a co-op. Like, I shouldn't bother asking them like to like give me a chance, right? But you know, WealthSimple is a good example of like what could happen if you just tried, right? It never hurts to ask. And the worst case that happens, you get rejected, and then you move on, and you have to be okay with that rejection. Like, you know, the first couple times, it's gonna hurt. You're gonna feel like shit. But after a while, once internalize that a rejection is not attached to your worth as a person, then it's much easier to just continue doing that. And like, I forgot who said this, but you only need one yes.
That's very interesting. On that note, Pei, thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Catch you guys later.